relieved?
Yeah, certainly. We were poor second half. There's no doubt about that. Scarlets made everything as uncomfortable as they could, and we clearly didn't react well to that. But acknowledge it's another 4 points in the bank, and in the intensity of a local derby across the course of a season, you've learned to take them, even though it feels a slight hollow victory. It's still a victory nonetheless.
Worried about the scrums?
It was listening to some of the set piece stuff at half time. They looked around a couple of problem solving things they had there, and they feel they had better outcomes second half. But it is another area the Scarlets will have a look to have a crack at us. And you know, it's great these back-to-back games because there's so many games within the game, and that's certainly one of them.
Everyone spent a lot of time watching the screen in the first half. What was your thoughts about the process, the series of decisions referred upstairs?
Just incredibly frustrated that we have these communication issues around, you know, a full professional league, which encompasses all the countries it does. I don't think it's, you know, acceptable as such, regardless of them being right or wrong. It just the process just is so long-winded and irregular. It's just dumbs the game down to me.
Are you talking about the technical difficulties or the language difficulties?
Both, yeah, both the issues. Yeah, in terms of, you know, communication issues, you know, are out there, and we've seen that before around you know, some of these games and the question asked and how it's interpreted. And you don't obviously get, I think, clarity around that, as well as technical issues shouldn't be happening in this day and age.
Still, you're top of the league going into the new year?
Yeah, and like I said, you know, we are a downbeat group in general in terms of the Ospreys, and we demand excellence, and we were far from it. And you know, there's a couple of mixed areas around that we certainly take on the chin. But yeah, the bottom line is at the end of the year, within the mix around the top five, being top at the end of the year is pleasing. But I think it's also, let's acknowledge the top five. I think there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position around that, certainly around the Six Nation games as well. So you don't read too much into it. But again, it's points in the bank, and I think it gives us a stimulus for next week, certainly.
And the Scarlets have laid down a bit of a marker maybe for next week?
They have. I thought they were impressive. There's obviously injuries going into the game, and they've had a couple of them out there today, but young boys have come in, and you know, I thought second half, the way they took stuff away from us was credit to them and their coaching team, and I think it'll certainly give them the enthusiasm to really have a good go with us next week. Possibly around a power-based game, but I thought they also asked questions of us in different ways, so it'll be certainly an interesting challenge, and we've got a lot to take on board come Monday.
How can you play a scrum right in the space of a week?
As I said, speaking to Chris just coming in here, he felt we had some change from what we did half time. Some of the outcomes are better second half. And I think it's just a constant process around the individual players in terms of the technical part of the game, in terms of, you know, foot positioning of individual players, and in the heat of the battle, you know, when things can get a bit individual at times, it's trying to stay 8 as 1. You know, I think that's the message that goes into it around that sort of facet of the game. But being as a team elsewhere as well is important to us, which we weren't tonight.
What did you make of the yellow card, Gruff? What did you make of it? Could there be more?
For Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, perhaps by the letter of the law, possibly, but again, it just seemed to be drawn out around the TMO, and within these derby games, you know, you don't always perhaps you know, get those calls correct.
When people suggested earlier, you said something like a game like this should be refereed by someone like Nigel Owens. The magnitude, would you back that up? Perhaps?
I think it's possibly easy to say that in hindsight around that game, but I can understand the referee department looking at different ways, seeing Nige doing Leinster, Munster, and different officials, different countries. It does perhaps add a different flavour and perspective to things, but you know, personal opinion is, yeah, people have got empathy for what is going on around that tackle area, and Nige, better than anyone around these derby games, may have more of a favourable spectacle, but that shouldn't excuse us being poor in those areas as well. I think we brought the ref into the game with some aspects of our discipline that was dumb as expletive, and some of our game management as well. So we'll look at ourselves first and foremost.
You'll need to play a lot better, Gruff, to get a result on that.
I think so, yeah, and I'd back us to certainly do so. So we had perhaps the aspect of boldness about us first half, where we did stretch the defence, and it was relatively pleasing, but the outcomes are poor, which perhaps put us on a knife edge going into half time, and we certainly didn't get the balance right second half. We were too rigid, and as I said, we gave the Scarlets options to actually get on the front foot, which I thought they did well, and they'll bring a few boys back into the team next week that'll perhaps capitalise more than they could today with what they had on the field. But as I said, it comes to us and what we can do, and it's going to be sets up a titanic battle. They've got such a good home record, they haven't lost there for the year, and we've got to go there and try and take that scalp.
How was Eli Walker?
Just feeling his hamstring, and again, I think knowing the history with Eli and trying to protect Eli as well, it was just a precautionary measure really. And back in the flying for G, and I think a game like today perhaps suits him. You want another physical guy there who can perhaps ask some questions, and it was like for like in some ways.
Dan Lydiot's first try must have been the least heralded ever for a guy to get his first try. It was given to him about half an hour later, wasn't it?
Yeah, by all accounts, I didn't know who, but I think it does show our driving game is certainly developing. There's another one near the end there, so we can talk about, and rightfully so, the Scarlets set-piece improvement, but we've got a driving game which is also a big part of our armoury, so that was pleasing. And now he's immersed himself well in the group. He probably had helped the defensive effort today, which he needed to do because we invited pressure, and he's going to be a good attacker for us as well.
Yeah, are you looking to develop him in a bit more of a ball-carrying role than maybe he's had at times in the past?
Without question, yeah, our game asks a lot of forwards to understand the game, where they can carry, where they can hit rucks, but not just playing by numbers. We want to challenge him to be on his feet and get in good positions. And it's nice to see when he carries, he's got good leg drives. We will try and get him in those positions.